You ready? Oh. You can tell we got some bugs to work out, folks. We're back from Texas and South Carolina and such. My friend Mikey over here, my buddy, my bro, my friend, my homie, is back from Texas. And the whole caboodle is going to fall, according to Robert Kiyosaki.
And
many other predictors.
Collapsing.
Many other predictors are saying the financial collapse is coming.
The profits are coming out.
Yeah. Now, is the financial collapse really happening, or is it a fear-driven agenda? Find out all this and more today on Self-Evident Podcast. Butt crack over here. Oh, I said that live? Yeah. Well, guys, welcome to Self-Evident Podcast. I was actually talking about my chin. I was like, I'm kind of getting a jawline now. I'm losing some weight, y'all. You'll see some before and afters here. But I got the little pooch right here we got to work on, right? Guys, you got Massey. You got almost Mike.
I'm around.
He's around. But we have a lot to talk about today. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Guys, go on theselfevidenttruth.com. Find out more information about what we're doing, who we are, and all of our touring. Guys, can I just say, we just got back from Texas, huh, boys? We just got back from Tejas and South Carolina. Now, going out there with the TTP group, the True Texas Project, we were out there also with doing some conferencing. And there was a church we did on a Saturday night. I didn't think it wasn't a church service. It was at a church called the Lone Star Church in Corsicana, Texas. And I'll tell you what, boy, them guys know how to pray. Tell you what.
Amen.
And it was awesome. So we're going to be back out there for another 2 weeks in September. So we'll give you some more information as those dates come out. If you have requested the slides, they will come to you. Don't worry. We don't forget those things. If you're new to the podcast, thank you so much for tuning in. You maybe have heard of us at an event, or maybe you just, maybe through the grapevine, maybe on, as what they call X or Facebook, or many other places like YouTube's and the Facey Spaces and the you know, like he says.
All the great things.
All the great things. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We got so much to cover. We also have a blog site post that we're going to be adding more content to on the selfevidenttruth.com. Guys, if you want to financially support this ministry, which we depend on that, it's a nonprofit and we're a ministry, please go do that. You guys can become a torchbearer. They can also give to text, or text to give, right? What is that?
Give to text and text to give and give to text.
Yeah. You're not on.
All right, so you're going to text the word GIVE to 772-242-0299. That is 772-242-0299. Text the word GIVE to donate.
Right.
Nice.
Starting in August, we have a massive announcement coming from Self-Evident, and it's going to be really, really cool. And we want you guys to be a part of it. So the month of August is going to be huge for us to launch into September, so we'll have an announcement here very soon. And the whole month is going to be dedicated to us launching more in September. So look out for that. It's going to be great. Now, we're talking about, is it going to collapse, Mike? Is it all going to go down the pot? We're live right now, so please comment down below. What do you think right now? Please, let's just open the door here. Do you think a financial collapse is coming? Many prophets have predicted it. People have had words about it for years, that a financial collapse is coming. I'm not saying it's not coming. I'm saying, what are the signs and the indicators that we can actually put our foot down on and say, hey, now, a financial collapse can happen anytime. We'll just throw this out there. It can happen. We go to war, financial collapse. It's going to happen, especially at a high inflation rate. I'm sorry, an inflation rate that it's at right now. The interest rates, the low buying power right now. Yes, we get into a war, bro.
Yeah.
And Paul and I were talking about this. China goes to war. Russia goes to war. And we're involved in it.
Oof, it's going to be rough. And
that's tricky.
Worst part is the military-industrial complex. Never saw a war they didn't want to get involved in. You know, and they see it as financially good for a nation because, of course, war is great. The problem is so many civilizations, what they end up doing is when they're coming to a collapse, war is that last-ditch effort to try and, you know, get the people rallied around you and move forward and push. And, you know.
And like you said, the military-industrial complex is that organization entity that is all about the money anyways. They don't give a crap about freedom and liberty. They care about their money, and they care about selling weapons and all those other things. And we've been talking about the military-industrial complex since what? Eisenhower's time when he exposed it, right? And nobody wants to believe it because it's all conspiracy. At this point, folks, everything you say is a conspiracy theory. Palestine's a conspiracy theory now.
Well,
Israel and the whole this guy we were supposed to do podcast with, I unfriended him, by the way. He's not coming against the Jews and having Hitler quotes.
who's that?
Rory, I think is his name. Remember that guy? We were supposed to be on a site. He was from California.
The California guy?
Yeah, crazy mess. So I was like, it never materialized.
Right.
But dude, he's like, the Jews are controlling everything, you know?
Oh, one of those.
So it's crazy stuff. It's like, okay, if that's what we're going to believe, and we're not believing it's the enemy, the prince of the power of the air, you're wrong. To come out against a whole race of people, stupid to me.
That one drives me up a
It's
wall.
stupid.
Anyways,
back to the collapse.
As an aside, just before we get into the collapse, did you see that now the conspiracy theory is that, well, Trump didn't actually get hit by the bullet?
It was a piece of glass?
Yeah, it was well, this is what happened. The head of the FBI, Chris Wray, was sitting before a congressional hearing, and he was the one who said, well, now, we don't even really know that he got hit by the bullet. It could have been some shrapnel or something. And so now all the Democrats are running with this. Trump's faking it, and he had blood packets. And it's like, and you call us nuts.
Dude, why was there a gunman who got killed?
It's all fake.
It's all fake. Dude, even if he didn't get hit, okay, like let's just say, and I'm playing this narrative. Let's say he didn't get hit. He was shot at.
Oh yeah, no,
he was shot at.
Yeah. Well, no, but it didn't hit him, so it's okay.
Were you saying he's a stormtrooper?
Yeah,
dude.
I guess
Do you
so.
see this though? Have you
hit.
guys seen this when President Biden came out on at the White House at the to announce why he's moving it over to the next generation? You know, the whole thing. There's like people who put his face on big. His face is moving, but his head's not. It's all a conspiracy. It's all AI now, which I don't know. It probably could be. I don't know. But it's all like, dude, everything's a rabbit trail right now, right? We're even saying, I just watched this thing last night. I don't know what I believe about it. You know, I'm just throwing this out there. JFK's assassination video when he was driving down Dealey Plaza, it was doctored.
Everything's fake.
It was doctored in the 60s.
Everything's fake.
It's all
give
fake.
up. It's
Dude,
all fake.
the moon landing,
Fake.
What's even real anymore?
Dude, what is Earth?
We don't even
what
live
is
on
real?
Earth.
Am I
At this
really
point.
me?
This is actually all a computer simulation.
I'm like John Cena. You can't see me, dog. You can't
Life
see
is
me.
a lie.
Huh?
My life is a lie.
My life is right. And the more they get you confused, the more it's like, where's God in all this, right? If he's not the ultimate truth, then we remove God,
Right.
we remove truth, we remove all these things, morality and all that stuff. So don't fall down the rabbit trails.
Yeah, I had to point that out.
I'm
'cause
glad, though.
It's
That's
the FBI.
the
like,
FBI, dude.
I'm so tired of the FBI.
So and we'll cover more of that later. So I got asked the question, like, why is it you guys didn't go live right away when Trump was shot, when Biden went down in the presidency, like he took himself out? And by the way, the purveyors of Trump will destroy democracy didn't even give the people a chance to elect Kamala
Don't
Harris.
you love it?
They just totally destroyed democracy.
We have to protect democracy by destroying it.
Side note, if anybody's thinking that Gavin Newsom can be her running mate, it's impossible. According to Amendment 12, they can't be from the same state. So she's from California, he's from California.
Good call.
Unless they re-amend, which they,
Hey, who knows?
Who knows? They can do anything at this
date,
point.
Yeah.
So I don't see Newsom being her running mate.
No, I'm with you. If she ends up being the candidate,
They're saying Clinton.
I could see it, man.
I could too.
Could you imagine? I would hate to be Kamala if all of a sudden people come up and say Hillary Clinton should be your vice president. Do not let her stand behind me.
Can you imagine those two laughs? You imagine? Yeah, the cackle birds just be out there just cackling the whole time. That's going to be funny.
We should get audio clips of both of them
Yep.
laughing and just put it all over each other.
And before you say that we're too much in this, we don't care. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing here because we're supposed to. Now, again, forgive us for not going live on those things. And let me get back to the point. Why don't we go live with these things? Because we typically wait about 7 days before we release anything because not all the truth is out. Not every bit of information's out. And the problem is everybody wants to be first instead of truthful. And so we just want to make sure that we're truthful in everything that we deliver to you so that we're not caught with our,
Right.
I was going to say something weird, pants down.
Yeah, well, you know.
But we're not caught off guard, right?
Yeah.
So
And it's important to us to try and get the facts right. And every once in a while we slip up and we get something wrong, but our goal
we've
really
admitted
is,
it.
yeah, our goal really is to try and get you the facts and get you as accurate as possible of a picture, because we know, hey, you guys are looking for the real answer. You're not just looking for the bias. And if you are looking for the bias, well, you're probably not listening to us anyways. So let's get into this, because I think this is, I want you to know, I truly spent hours on this.
guys, before we continue, like and subscribe.
Yes, please.
Our subscribers are growing. It's the way to monetize this ministry as well. We want this podcast to monetize, so we're not, you know what I mean? It's just an extra where you don't have to donate. Your subscriptions help us get the deal. So,
and that's the easiest thing, is just share.
yep.
Share,
Share
like, subscribe.
share it now.
Helps us.
What are you doing?
Do it.
Share. Do it now.
Do it. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Press share.
Maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger will be her vice president.
Okay.
That sucked.
It's all good.
That's
we just move on.
terrible. Sorry, guys.
So obviously this always happens, right? It's not just this moment. There are plenty of moments where people will say it's all collapsing. I mean, for the past 5 years, we've heard there's going to be a famine, at some point in the fall. This happens every year. And there's plenty of times where people are saying economic collapse 2024. But the funny thing is, people have said economic collapse 2023, economic collapse 2022, economic collapse 2021. And so people are going to throw this stuff out there. And Massey had actually sent me a video of Robert Kiyosaki talking about we're going to have a collapse in 24 or 25. And I found another video of him in 2023 claiming that March of 2024 was when the big collapse was coming. And as soon as somebody gives you a date, it's kind of like, okay, I see where we're going. And I don't even not respect Robert Kiyosaki, but I think sometimes these people, they're so far in their own methods, their own thought process, that they see signals and they go, it's a warning signal, it's all going to collapse. And other people have pointed to like Warren Buffett, and they talk about how he's sitting on a bunch of cash right now, like $180 billion in cash. And he tends to do that right before big events. So everybody's, no, it's going to happen. And if you got something.
No, I was just thinking about it because when I was reading your maps, because I've been doing a lot of this homework on some of these talkers, and dude, everybody's doom and gloomer. It's like there's no difference between them and a lot of these people who predict doom and gloom on the Christian side.
Right.
Really, really, it's like, and what I'm seeing more and more, bro, I started saying this at our events, I'm actually pulling away from the doctrine of everybody's an idolater right now of the political system. What I'm actually starting to say is they just don't understand the political system. So they're doing naturally. So when we don't understand the economic side, we think collapse. We don't understand finances. Like you go talk to many different sources, a Paul or anybody else who actually understands somewhat of these things. There's like, no, you're not seeing this factor, this factor, this factor. We're seeing trends. Now, I will say Kiyosaki, according to him, he says this has been the longest uptrend we've had in economies. Like typically every 4 years, 5 years, you see this dip in correction in pricing and all these other things. Whereas now it's been 11, 12 years of just a steady growth in our economy. That should alert people. And it's like, okay, of course I start talking to other economists that I know or whatever. And they're like, yeah, but you're not factoring the fact that it's been propped up by the federal government. So you're not you're not, which then brings all these other questions.
Right. And to your point exactly, there's this thing called quantitative easing. And it's basically where the federal government gets more dollar bills printed and they put that cash supply into the economy. And this upward trend has been fed by this system. And this has been an argument for a long time. Now, people will say it's automatically going to collapse the dollar right away problem. Japan has been doing this for, 50 years now. Now, they're kind of a zombie economy. A lot of people talk about, yes, they haven't had a massive collapse. And I'm not saying that a massive collapse couldn't come. I'm not saying that at all. when Kiyosaki points to quantitative easing, printing a bunch of money, which you may go, well, what does that matter? It's more dollar supply in the economy. Here's the prevailing thought. If, let's say you have 6 diamonds in the whole world, each of those diamonds is going to be worth a lot. But now, let's say somebody comes up with a way to grow diamonds in a couple of hours. So now all of a sudden the market is flooded.
Right.
Now all of a sudden the value of diamonds, just a generic term, diamonds, that value goes down because of the supply.
Yes.
Right?
So that's okay. Side note, right? Caveat. Kiyosaki's been predicting this, but you know what he starts promoting? Gold.
Exactly.
Investments in gold. Why? He knows something we all still are trying to figure out. Like, how do these guys hedge their money when not so much a collapse, but a correction comes, which I think is more what's going to happen is a correction, not so much a collapse. I don't know.
Right.
I could be wrong.
No, I'm with you.
So
keep going with your thought, but I've got evidence towards that point.
right.
going.
So the okay. Back in the days of the old school hellfire and brimstone messaging, which we need a little bit of that today. There's no question. Sinners and an angry God was a necessary sermon. But you can use fear to promote a product, right?
Yes.
Government does it all the time. I can't remember Senator Jim McDermott before I think he passed away now. He said you can get people to do anything with the use of fear. So the more they promote the fear side, Palestine, Israel, Russia, Ukraine, collapse. Trump is a misogynistic, racist punk now that's coming against Kamala. Kamala is a invalid woman who thinks she's Indian, black, Chinese, and all that stuff, and she doesn't even know how to formulate a sentence. Biden can't even.
Laughs.
Biden wears more Depends, and he only depends on his Depends. You know, like there's fear, right? And markets are driven by fear,
Yes.
right? They're driven by the uncertainty, especially during an election year, is that's why you see markets go volatile because they don't have anything concrete to stand on. Are they going to get a socialist in the White House, or are they going to get someone who's actually free market in the White House,
And
right?
you will watch the market as things change in terms of who's most likely to get in the White House. You'll watch the market change on that
100%.
because guys are like, oh, well, if Biden, now Kamala wins, the policies are going to be bad. I'm pulling my money out.
Or
like,
they'll stick it out and adjust,
Right.
which they do. So a lot of our economy has a lot to do with the stability of a nation, right? I'm just going to throw this out there. Do you think this talk of collapse is happening because you see these paid actors that are coming to these little events like the Free Palestine events? And there are paid because they're coming in the bus loads.
Bust in. There's
Yeah,
video
there's
of them
bus
getting
loads.
bust in.
They're getting, and I don't care if you call me, just call me what you want. I don't care at this point. But you're seeing this happen to create civil unrest and instability. Washington, D.C. now has a bunch of marshals on the ground. They want martial law.
Yeah.
It's a way to control and to stop the elections.
Yeah.
It is. It's a way. You can call me nuts, but you're hearing pings of martial law. Martial law truly means they run now. It suspends state rights, unconstitutional, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Martial law is like they're dominating now.
Yep. And what better way than to build fear? And you said something that I was thinking about this morning. He pushes gold, right? Gold's the best hedge. Silver's the best hedge. Your immediate question should be, why?
Exactly.
Why are you telling me this, right?
Exactly.
So not that gold and silver aren't good investments in terms of if you want to get out of cash. And I'm not saying it's not a good investment vehicle.
Do you do it? You do it, right?
I've got some gold and silver. I am not saying, I'm not giving advice, but what I'm saying for myself is I am not putting all of my cash into gold and silver.
Yeah.
Right?
I got gold and silver.
There you go.
That's all I got. though.
But then I see him talking about Bitcoin on Bitcoin channels and Bitcoin's the last frontier and all that. Anybody remember Jim Baker?
The preacher?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Dude, he would sell you anything and
PTL,
everything,
baby. Praise
man.
the Lord.
Man,
now he does too.
Oh yeah, he sells you gold, he sells you silver, he sells you emergency food because the whole world's going to collapse. And I can speak from experience. I'm willing to put myself up here. Back during the Jonathan Kahn stuff, it was like, man, guys seems legit in his prophecies, seems legit in his symbolism. Maybe something's going to happen. So I went out and bought food. I bought snack. I was ready, man.
You had so much dry food.
I do. I still do.
You still have it? Which is awesome.
I live in Florida. I got hurricanes. Sure, it's cool. I'm glad I got it. You're like, I'm not going to argue and throw it out. But man, the fear that got wrapped up in all of that, and yeah. Here I am.
I remember when you did that. I'm like, what are you doing?
I was ready, man.
It was like September of, was it 2017,
Yeah,
16?
it was something like that.
And he said, John Con. I was like, well, I ain't ready for that. I may come to your house and borrow some dry food.
Come on over and have a meal of dried oatmeal with me.
Some dried pot roast. It's like Honey Nut Cheerios.
Here's powdered milk. Pour some radioactive water into it.
Yeah, because it's all full of fluoride,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
everybody's going to kill us.
They're turning the frogs gay. Anyways. Shout out.
Shout out to Alex.
Shout out
to Alex Jones.
Anyways, so you get these guys that, man, their whole thing is like, buy the food, buy the gold, buy the silver. And so when you hear these guys, like a Kiyosaki,
Yeah.
and again, I'm not disrespecting him. I think he's...
And we're
I
not
think he
saying
helps
he's not
switches
right.
people mindset. Right. We're not saying he's right or he's wrong. Question is, do you move in fear and go, it's going to collapse in 4 months and I don't know what to do and my family and I just... Settle down, killer. Settle down.
I like Brian's response. Even if it does collapse, God is still
God
good.
is God.
If you know the word, bro, he preserves his saints, dude.
Right.
He does. So what we're talking about is, how do we be smart through all this, and how do we know it's not all prophets and all this other stuff? What is really happening? How can we best prepare for it, right?
Right.
And hedge ourselves and be smart.
Put your mom's comment up. Put Carrie's comment up. Carrie just said, we got a box of Lucky Charms for the coming collapse. We'll be fine. You know what? Carrie, this is directly to you. The disciples came to Christ with 5 loaves and 2 fishes. I'm telling you, if you had brought a box of Lucky Charms, Jesus would have rolled up his sleeves and let's go do it. Everybody would have been eating marshmallows and they would have put the other pieces aside, right? I'll fill up on. Did you guys do that when you were eating Lucky Charms?
Yes.
Yes.
I do.
See,
But
See, me too.
I get the marshmallows. You guys just get the brand stuff.
Ooh.
Okay,
I've never seen you eat Lucky Charms, though.
that's true.
Anyways, so let's go through these claims. It'll get a little bit nerdy because I need to kind of flex that I spent 4 hours researching this stuff.
But this is actually one of those podcasts where both of us invested time into to really thinking this through.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I think very much. Oh, my Facebook froze for some reason.
Because it's Facebook, dude.
I'm really wondering if because we said Jones or something it froze. Anyways, so what I wanted to do was, can I find some red flag, massive indicator that the market is going to collapse? Because if we look back at 2007, 2008, guess what we saw? Mortgages.
Yeah, stated
Right.
income. You remember
Default
that?
through
Were you
dude.
part of that? Were you still in high school or?
2008, I was in college.
So the
was in
bad thing
college.
about one of the bad things that we saw back then, which they since amended, was stated income. You could just state your income. I don't know if Carrie's on. Maybe Shalene will comment, and several of you. Do you guys remember the stated income thing? Like you could just say,
Yeah,
you didn't have to
yeah.
verify what you were making.
Totally $200,000 a year.
Yeah, you made that over 4 years, dude. But like they put it on there because they wanted that house. And I
Yep.
remember we could state, and it would actually worked in our favor because we were in a cult that didn't really like the government, so we were kind of
Right.
like backhanding and backdooring, and we had to kind of prove how we're, all that stuff. And so that was a big problem. People lying, taking out mortgages they couldn't afford, which
Yep.
that's called covetousness. The only reason we fell to me in that mess was covetousness. Because we
Yes.
don't know thou shalt not covet.
And the people who wanted the house and then the people selling them the mortgage, right?
Ooh, yeah.
Because what happened is, oh yeah, totally. You make $200,000. Meanwhile, they drove up in like a 20-year-old Toyota,
True.
with 3 wheels on it.
And
you
those
know?
that lent them the money were just as selfish
Oh,
because
yeah.
they were getting commissions.
Yeah, because and it did kind of start with the government going, no, you have to and Paul and I were talking about this, it looks like it started back in the whole redlining issue. So redlining was this theory that, and some would say more than a theory, where cities were dividing themselves between blacks and whites. Well, when they got rid of the red line, they wanted blacks to integrate more into the white neighborhoods, and they needed to get them houses. So the government came through and said, no, you have to loan so much to people to get them into houses, right? So you had these guys who were like, well, you rolled up in a Toyota, so that means you have a car. We'll write $400,000 on your thing. We'll get you a $300,000 house. Cool, we're good. Then immediately what those guys would do is turn around and sell that mortgage to another lender.
Yep.
Because they do that all the time. They'll take your mortgage and they'll sell it to another lender. They'll make some money, and that other lender goes, well, I'm going to make money off the interest. And then at some point, maybe they'll sell it to somebody else, right?
That's
right.
The game.
So this
it's that
game of like
shell game.
Who ends with the hot potato?
That's right.
And so what would happen is then they would take these mortgages that basically got laundered through the system. So then everybody's like, well, it's a great mortgage. It's fine. And they would package them up into what's called a security, and they'd sell that. Well, then banks would buy that, and they would use that, right? And it worked itself up the chain. What they didn't think about was what happens when all these people who lied on their forms and all these mortgages start defaulting. And so what happened is everybody defaulted, which made the packaging of those mortgages worthless. And so then everybody lost all of their money because they had so much invested in what were called junk bonds or high yield bonds, right? Their bonds are basically like, hey, put your money in this and you're going to make interest rate off this. Well, those collapsed because they're all made of crap. It was
and then
lipstick on a pig.
Quite an ugly pig if you think about it, because it was all built on sticks. You know what I mean? The pig was anemic at best, right? To even put lipstick on it.
Right.
But one of the weird things that happened during that time was the government then comes in and goes, we're going to subsidize it all. Mm-hmm. That's how they knew they could. I'm telling you, they knew they'd get away with it when they said the government, FDIC, will just come in and subsidize.
We'll cover stuff.
And we'll cushion. Now, you only cushioned 80%, and we just wrote the rest of it off and threw it on a national. Essentially, what we did is throw it on a national debt, print more money, make that thing happen, right? But that little bit of that pig that got eaten up destroyed an entire economy. Mm-hmm. You remember GM was going under, Ford was going. Well,
it dragged everybody down because the banks, so many corporations and businesses and everything, they rely on the banks to give them funding, capital, and the banks rely on the loans and the interest. And if people aren't paying their loans and their interest, and the banks don't have the money to give out, and so then businesses dry up with their capital. Right. It's a incestuous mess that happens.
Yeah. And Daniel's saying we realize that. Go ahead and say it.
Daniel said, everyone bundles and sells mortgages. People buy them for long-term investments. True, but after the mortgage crash, after this whole crash, they started reducing the percentage of mortgages in terms of high yield bonds. And so this was part of my research yesterday, because I went down a rabbit hole of like, what are some indicators going on? What's going on in terms of defaults and all that? Now, what I found is, and I'm going to kind of just quick go through what I found. Corporations, credit is tightening, which means corporations are having a harder time getting loans, right?
Yep.
So what are the corporations doing? They're trying to find other ways to get cash flow, to get capital. High yield bonds, aka junk bonds, which is what caused the whole issue up the chain last time, they're pouring more money into those. So we immediately, it's like, okay, that's a warning sign. Now, when I looked into it, the high percentage of high yield bonds are no longer made of a majority of mortgages. They've kind of scraped that stuff out because it was such a problem. What they're using now is a more diversified or split up portfolio. They're using auto loans, they're using commercial loans, they're using student loans, they're using credit card receivables. Do you notice it's debt? So debt has value. What they're saying is, well, this debt, when it gets paid off, it's going to pay interest, so therefore it has more value than just the principal of the debt. So, hey, this is a valuable product we can sell you. And so I went through and I was like, okay, are any of these indicators, and I got through this the back way because I was looking at specific like specific areas, and I got through this the back way, but I just said, okay, I'm going to look at default rates of auto, of corporate loans, all of that.
Which can we just comment even on the default? We have a friend who's in the auto business, and there's a lot of these small shops that are closing.
Yeah.
People aren't buying; they're holding on to their money. So it's an easy indicator to say, okay, it's going to collapse. Why are we doing this? Well, first off, they can't afford it anymore.
Right.
They can't. You can't afford buying cars and selling cars no more. You know what I mean? Now, let's just pray for our friends who are in the auto industry that God will protect them and keep them and all that stuff and hold on. But it's easy to see these indicators to say collapse.
Right. And this is something that I ran across, and it gave me new perspective. Just because there's an indicator of a downturn does not mean a collapse. So what they'll do is they'll tell you, oh, there's this indicator and this dropped so much, or this went out a certain standard deviation, and that's a sign of. And be skeptical of that process, right? Be skeptical of that, because when I went through, because I had the same thought about auto loans, so I had done a specific query on like where's auto loans, used cars sales, new car sales, all of that. That market it's not in its healthiest state. And auto loan default rate, I searched, so I went back 20 years. I excluded 2020 through 2022, but I went back 20 years and I found the median default rate for all of these, but auto loans as an example. And then I found the current default rate and how many standard deviations it is outside the norm. So auto loans, they were like, I don't know, 4 standard deviations outside, which we go, okay, yeah, that's a major signal. Pause. Corporate default rate, that was, I think, like 7 standard deviations outside the norm. Student loans were like 7, and kind of multiple deviations. I did find commercial real estate, which a lot of people are talking about, like the buildings in New York, they're just empty, right? And what I found in commercial real estate as far as the default rate, it looks to be 22 standard deviations outside the norm. And I was reading something today of banks are in an issue because smaller banks, well, and it's funny because you'd go, well, the banks are all in trouble. Actually, right before the collapse, 13% of banks were considered problematic, right? They were rated 2 stars or under, and they were in trouble. They were overexposed in certain ways. Today, it's about 1.3% because they've upped the standards, the regulations, how much they can have on hand, their portfolio, and all that. However, community banks seem to be less exposed to who they would be the ones more at risk. They're less exposed to commercial real estate. The bigger banks are more exposed to commercial real estate, but they have a bigger size to be able to handle this, right?
Got it.
So while commercial real estate, yes, it is a red flash indicator in a way, there seems to be some leveling out that the banks are able to do. Why do you say this, Mike? Because it sounds like you're back to square one. Yes, because what I'm saying is, yes, there can be some indicators, but that doesn't mean that everything's going to collapse because guess what? The commercial real estate is 22 standard deviations outside. You want to know what mortgage rate default was at that time? Which I looked and I searched it and I compared it to the previous 20 years for it. 109 standard deviations.
Whoa.
So if if we're looking at red flag indicators, 109 standard deviations, that's massive.
So let me ask you a question,
sure.
because this is a question I had. Maybe some of you have, and if you have questions, please write them down below. Like, what is a standard deviation point? What does that mean?
And by all means, I am no expert. So if somebody else has something else that they see that
we're not seeing, please,
by all means, put it in there.
But I think the question can be asked though: is this a reaction to 2020 and 2022? Those 2 years is what we're seeing, a reaction to the halting of an entire global economy. Even if it was for a month, that's an upsetting thing. You had food out there that had to get reestablished because it went bad in ships and carts and cratons and crates and things like that. You had the auto market that was importing and exporting that stopped immediately. Mm-hmm. Lumber, I can't even think the little products we use every day. I mean, some of our stuff we get from China was also on boats too. So there was all these, like, you disrupted, even for that little blip of an economy.
Right.
Is this a response, what we're seeing because of that, right?
Right. And again, I am no expert, but I think so. I think the waves from 2020 in the whole pandemic, those waves are going to be felt, I think, for years to come. Again, non-expert opinion, but especially in the commercial real estate market, you can't help but say that is a direct result, because guess what happens? Everybody was told, go be remote. So then businesses, they adjusted their business model to, well, most of our people can be remote and we can make this work.
So we don't need commercial real estate.
So we don't need commercial real estate. And then you look at the real estate market in New York, and it's outrageous, right? So companies go, well, I can save my company $4 million a year by not renting out all this space.
100%. Which then affects the furniture industry, because you're not furnishing these commercial real estate businesses with the furniture they need.
Right.
Then it affects the auto industry, because people can stay home. They can Uber, they can Amazon, they can do all those things. So you don't really need 2 cars anymore. You can get along with one.
Right.
Right. So you're disrupting entire economies by just one act of saying stay home. Right.
Exactly.
And so Shalene just asked, what is a standard deviation?
I want to get it right, so I'm going to say this. I asked ChatGPT. So
we asked the demon AI to tell us what it is.
So this is what it says. Standard deviation is a measure of the amount of variation, right? Variation or volatility or up and down or dispersion in a set of values. It quantifies how much the values in a data set deviate from the mean of the data set. In simpler terms, it tells you how spread out the values are around the mean. So if you imagine a dot graph, if all of the dots are right along the line, there's very little to no standard deviation, right? So it basically takes this number and goes, okay, what is the percentage of outside that normal line?
Right.
Right. How far is
So the
that
acceptable
spread?
level, how far are we off or up?
Right.
Like, down or up?
Exactly.
Got it.
How far are we outside of the norm?
So
on this?
so where are we at now in the commercial industry? It's about 20 points down, but during the collapse it was at 100.
Yeah. So it was like the normal rate of default, and if I dig through my stuff, I can find the exact numbers. But the normal rate of default over a 20-year span was such and such. At the collapse, it was 109 standard deviations. So that meant it was this massive percentage off the normal line. And it's about 22 for commercial real estate right now, 22 standard deviations. So it's what the normal line is, it's about 22 sets outside of
Makes
that,
sense.
right?
Makes sense.
So it's basically showing you, okay, there's a lot of variability going on here. There's something wrong in the system. Now, Kiyosaki was talking about what's called a repo market. And now you may say, like stealing cars? No. Which I get visions of, like those TV shows where the guy like, you ain't gonna steal my car,
and the cameras inside the repo truck.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And
like pull up quick and take off with the car.
And the guy comes running out without a shirt on. And he's got a mullet. And
what
he's
you
waving.
doing?
You ain't doing. Give me back my car.
I want my freedom.
Yeah, America. Not that type of repo. So the repo market is called the repurchase agreement market. And Kiyosaki was saying the repo market, it's way out of hand. This marketplace allows banks to borrow money quickly and cheaply when they need cash. It's basically them borrowing money from each other. So basically they pledge an asset, right? Let's say somebody's mortgage. They pledge an asset to another bank. That bank gives them cash.
Yep.
It's one of the, and they do daily trades on this. It's one of the ways they can zero out their books. They can work on their books and get their books where they want them. And then basically it trades right back the next day. The repo market currently is at about 2.5 trillion daily, 2.5 to 3 trillion daily. So Kiyosaki was saying this is way out of hand. Again, at the great collapse of 2008, the repo market was working at 5 trillion plus daily. So again, it's like, and I emailed my brother who he's high up in finance and
Yeah, he's
a
kind of
whiz.
an advisor, right? He's on financial.
He's a vice president of his whole department.
Oh,
So and he
what's his name?
He
Want to donate?
right. He actually just got a promotion too, but he's a whiz at all of this stuff. So I emailed him all of my research, and I'll let you know what he gets back to me. But I'm like, what am I missing? I said because I get the doom and gloomers, and Kiyosaki says the repo market and all that, and I'm hoping my brother will come back and say, well, maybe this is what he's seeing. I don't see it. Now, there was a flash in the repo market a couple of months ago, half a year ago, something like that. That's all I could find. So this is what I'm telling you is when you get these people who come out and they say, oh, the commercial real estate market, it's going to collapse. Now, Buffett himself said, yeah, there's issues in the commercial real estate market. He did not come out and say, the whole thing's going to collapse. It's going to drag the whole thing down.
Who would know better than him, right? I mean,
right. Now, they brought up he's sitting on a lot of cash. I want to get back to this because this is kind of the origin, right? People have noticed when the market is about to take a downturn, Buffett was sitting on a good amount of cash. Buffett, this is how he invests. So when you think of investors, day traders, you think somebody picking a stock and, oh, I think it'll go up, click. Okay, sell. Buffett, think of him as a guy who is buying ownership in a company. So when he buys stock in Apple, he loves the big stocks. Apple, GE, Coca-Cola, Bank of America. When he buys it, he very much views, am I purchasing ownership in a company that I believe will do well over the long term? They have good fundamentals. They have good quality. They're a good business. And then he just rides them, and he builds his portfolio that way.
Got it.
So when he pulls money out, and he even said this last time, he's like, look, there's just, and he knows how powerful his word is. And that's where it's like, be careful of these really big voices. Like Jim Cramer has, allegedly, I should say, has tanked companies because of what he said on his short, call me Biden, show. Every
Are you
person
resigning, President Biden?
Every person listening went, what?
It was a glitch in the Matrix, guys. It's all conspiracy.
Where's the black cat?
He's all AI.
So Buffett recognizes his word can tank markets. So he's very careful what he says. Basically what he said was, well, we're sitting on a lot of money right now because we just don't see companies that we want to invest in, AKA companies are overvalued. If there's a red indicator in all of this, yes. So again, nerd talk. There is what's called a Buffett indicator. And I did more research on this. Buffett indicator is basically you take the value of all of the stocks in America, which is running at about 55 trillion right now. You take the GDP and you divide them, so you get a percentage. Right now, and the higher the percentage is, the more companies are overvalued as a whole. Overvalued is a problem because guess what? You don't want to pay $400 for your McDonald's food. It's overvalued at that point. Right. So you go, I don't need that, right?
Right.
These companies are overvalued. So I decide, okay, I'll check the Buffett indicator during the last collapses, right? The big major collapses. Then I'll check it on the economic boom years. You know what I found? There was no discernible difference. Wow. The Buffett indicator went between 0.6 to 1.5. It was kind of give or take when it was happening. So people will look at the Buffett indicator and go, collapse is imminent. It's imminent. Well, but it could also point to an economic boom. Yeah. We've had it point to economic booms in the past. So give or take. So I say all this to say...
And it could be, too, that he's sitting on a lot of cash because it's an election year. And again, markets are uncertain. We don't know. Yeah. We don't know. What scares me is the automatic, let's believe the prophet because an economic collapse is happening.
Can you go that route?
Yeah, let's do it.
I think we need to go that route.
Let's do it. I was just reading in the book of Acts, and I remember, I think it was Acts chapter, it was in between 4 and 10, which is a big spread, okay? 5 basis points, right? But when they were out evangelizing, one of the church people had come and gave a prophecy of a famine coming in the land. And when the famine came in the land, when they heard this, they were all moved in the spirit. The Bible says that they all gave what they could and gave it to the church where Peter and them were to distribute to the people because a famine was coming. We've been hearing about financial collapse. I'm not kidding, since at least for me, I'm 40 now. And so about 1985, 1986, my mom's been telling me a big financial collapse is coming.
Isn't it funny that
No.
it always happens?
We've
right?
definitely had some crazy times. There's no question. No one can deny 08. No one can deny COVID time. No one even can deny when Y2K.
happen,
Remember
right?
Y2K? That whole the whole internet age.
Yeah.
When that first started, people were trusting it, so there was a kind of a dip in that as well. But too many times on Facebook or whatever, you're seeing there's a famine coming, a financial collapse coming, and I heard the word of the Lord, and it's coming in September, and it doesn't happen. Now, I'm not saying it can't happen. The problem is we hang on to the words of people instead of getting that affirmation from the Lord themselves. What I'm saying is this. I look at Scripture and go, those people who gave those predictions were trusted by the church. Are you listening to people who aren't trusted and they're just on Facebook saying these things because they call themselves a prophet? Who's their backing? Who's promoted them to the office? Who's recognized them as the office of prophet?
And
right?
And have they established a series of discernible, objective prophecies that have come true? And they didn't come out with a video 2 weeks after the event happened and said, dude, I totally dreamed this. I totally have this in my notebook and I totally saw it. I'm totally awesome.
Yeah, and two, so go with this as well. I do know prophets who are legit prophets who are doing those things. And I'm hearing a guy like Joseph Z not predicting so much a collapse as in God is coming for America. We're going to go through some tough times. We're going to see some dips. But there's never this fear-mongering side of that message. It's we're going to go through some crap here. But, dude, be of good cheer. Let's keep moving forward, right? Like, there's still hope to be had. I think people are opportunists.
Yeah.
They hear so much of this stuff and they see these trends, call it prophecy. It's called trends, folks. Not everything is a prophecy. And I'm really, really sick and tired of the prophets coming out and saying, we predicted this. It's trends, folks. Some people have called our ministry prophetic.
Yeah.
Bro, we're just seeing what happens in society when they go despotic.
Right.
They forget God. God brings a judgment of, I'm giving you over to your reprobate minds. That's what you want. Fine, I'll give it to you. It goes down. All of a sudden, we seek the Lord in repentance. We come back up out of the water. God seems to prosper our nation. We love it when God does that. And all of a sudden, we forget God and we go back down. It's cycles. We just forget who we are. And it's like, that's not prophetic, dude. That's not prophecy. That's just prediction because we see what happens.
Right.
So we're more of a predictive type ministry for sure. We're not prophetic. I mean, we operate in the prophetic.
That's
right?
it. We're going prophetic. You want to hear my prophecy? Here it is. Here's my prophecy. I believe there's going to be a market correction at some point. I believe there's going to be more civil unrest and civil strife leading up to the election. I believe that President Trump will not have an easy go of this election cycle.
And when he gets elected, if he gets elected, it's going to be very hard for him.
It will be.
He will be misunderstood.
I believe that wars will continue around the globe. I could keep going. I mean,
right. And so what we're not trying to do is mock. What we're trying to say is be careful the voices that you listen to and put your ear to.
Exactly.
I do think that the prophets of today not only give a strong word of correction, but they also give a strong word of encouragement too.
Yeah.
They're supposed to lead us out and say, hey, the Lord's on your side though. So I go back to Jeremiah 29. I know the thoughts and plans I have towards you. That was right after 70 years of judgment, right? But also you have the that in the beginning of, I never stopped telling you to be a Christian. Build houses and live in them. Go have father, sons, and daughters, and marry your daughters to sons, and marry your sons to the daughters, and go plant vineyards and fields and eat of the produce, and pray for the prosperity of your land, and seek the prosperity of your land, because when it prospers, you prosper. Then he says, for I know the thoughts and plans, but just before that he says, be careful of the prophets.
which isn't that interesting.
It's interesting because we're almost looking for them to tell us what's happening instead of saying, I trust the Lord with this. It's not wrong to be alert. That's what we need to be.
Yes.
There's something wrong when we're constantly depending on a word that doesn't happen yet. And then they'll say, see, we told you it was going to happen. Yeah, 20 years ago. But what about the times when you said it was going to be in September 2016, 2018, 2019?
Right.
Oh, it happened in 2020. None of you predicted the friggin',
The bridge.
the virus.
Yeah.
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Now, there was a couple who did. I'm just being pretentious here and mocking.
But then we did hear, and I won't name names, but we heard major, supposedly accepted people trying to put forth prophecies that, oh, well, the virus is going to end in a month. It's all going to be over in a month. It's a quick hit, right? And it didn't happen. And so all we're saying is take what you're given and put it on the shelf. There's value in hearing prophecy from a respectable, positioned prophet, but the problem is the fear. And fear will twist you up so fast. And the thing is, it's secular prophets in terms of the markets, right? So in your markets or in your global politics, your global affairs, look, we've been looking at this stuff for years. And it's amazing how often people will come, it's all going to end because tiny little thing over here. And then it blows over. And the problem is everybody forgets. They forget that person was wrong.
Right.
So then that person comes back out and yeah, you know, I do want to read, Fabian had a couple of things. So let's go ahead and put his first one up. He said, prophets were only chosen by God himself. This is the only office that does this. No father nor human can appoint it. And then he said, the initiative making a prophet rested with God alone, and all the true prophets received a specific and personal call from him. Then Amy said, be mindful. The word of the Lord has never changed and never will. Remain in his covenant.
Preach.
First Chronicles.
Preach.
Right?
He's not going to change his word. And his word says, I've never seen the righteous forsaken. I have not seen them begging for bread. He's always kept his remnant. I think we need to rest in those things. But also understanding, Lord, is there areas I need to invest in right now to weather the storm, right? Am I supposed to invest in things to weather the storm to help other people? Am I supposed to? Our wealth was never for us anyways. It was actually to help the brothers. And the book of Acts is pretty cool about that. You're seeing that happen a lot. And these liberal lefters like, that's socialism. No, it's called benevolence, folks. Right. That's not socialism. That wasn't forced on them. The Holy Spirit led them to do it. That's called benevolence. It's called love. Read the fruit of the Spirit and read 1 Corinthians 13. They were giving from a heart of love, a heart of joy. They were cheerful in doing it. They weren't forced by the government to give to these things, okay? So knock this crap off of socialism. That's not Christ, and Christ would never force people. If he's going to force people to believe in him, there's no need for the Holy Spirit. And it's not a religion at that point. It's a cult, okay? So quit it. It's a joke. So when we're talking about this, and I think it's really cool because you got this whole thing too about the Roman financial crisis.
Oh yeah,
and we need to go in this real quick.
Go for it.
In 33 AD. Now I'm doing a lot of homework on first and second century church. We've been talking about it. We will do eventually on a Monday. Remember, Fridays are governmental stuff. Mondays are the more spiritual side, discipleship side. Wednesdays we're going to turn into more of the, and it's coming soon, interview. We want to do more interviews with people that are awesome, by the way. But this year, the Roman financial crisis in 33 AD, a crisis unfolded in Rome. Roman culture held agriculture and farmland as a prized aspect. So a lot of the times when the military got out, they would give them parcels of land. That was actually kind of a thing to do, even in like Scotland and other places. Nobles were giving land and titles. So like it was a way to negotiate. Land was a very hot commodity. It was like having money because they knew the land wasn't just land. It was a producer of crops that you could sell and still make more money. So it was a commodity you could invest in. Investments always brought a yield. Yield brings forth money. So it's just constant, right? Land is everything. Why do you think the federal government is doing its best to try to keep it from you? Think about it. Land is everything. Possession of property is one of the biggest things, the first things in Genesis that God gave to Adam. Go to the land and subdue it. It's yours. Good. So land is important in any believer's life, any person's life. It's an ownership. It's a thing. It's something I'm over, right? So, when the money flowing in Rome had been decreasing since loans were being made inside the empire. What was happening was the lower interest rates were happening, so we're kind of just developing this. They weren't really attracting outside things; they were more inside. Well, how many loans can you actually develop inside? You only need so many to keep an economy going for interior. The purpose of states is, like Texas, Elon is shifting his whole California mess over to Texas, right? Well, Texas is about to get a boost of taxes they'd never seen before, right?
Coming from the outside.
Coming from the outside. The entire purpose of keeping your state clean, efficient, making sure. Now, it's tricky because the border's kind of screwed up right now, but they'll fix all that.
Right.
Abbott's doing his best right now, as best he can. I'm not for him. He's just doing his best, right, with what he has right now. So they're moving. The state then is attracting outside investors, outside people to come into Texas and use that property. So Texas's property is very, very important.
Yep.
You know what that does to the rest of the state? Prices go up. Economies go up. Businesses will be built around SpaceX. Why? Because it's going to attract people. That's what happens. So when you have a good example, Walt Disney, it was just 600 acres at one point.
Yeah, it's swampland.
Swampland.
Useless.
And useless, dude. He got it for a song. And then all of a sudden now it's being built up. Now businesses will go and develop an economy around it because of the attraction that happens, right?
Yeah.
So back to this. A law got passed by Julius Caesar requiring creditors to invest a portion of their money in Italian land in order to be able to lend it at interest. Dang.
Right.
Explain.
And in that, and I'm glad you brought up trade, global trade, they were investing in shipping and transportation, right? So
Oh,
ships
yeah,
go
they were
out to other
huge with
places,
that.
right? And they wanted to, they
Tariffs,
felt that
baby.
they felt agriculture was so much part of the Roman identity that they wanted to pursue that. So basically they switched it around and said, no. You got to start investing in agriculture. That's where you got to put your, but they're also handing land over to the soldiers, right? So you're noticing this crunch of a limited supply and everybody wants it because that whole interest thing and the loans that were given out. And then the soldiers want land and everybody knows it's a commodity.
Right. And land was a hedge for the money. So what happens is they needed an asset to borrow against to lend out this money, right? It's a common practice. One our friend Paul will tell us all the time, yeah, we're $40 trillion in debt, but we have $230 trillion in assets in America. So people are saying it's bad. And I do believe it's bad to have debt the way we have it. But when you compare it, our debt to income and what we have as assets,
He makes a very valid point.
It's a valid point.
Everybody says, oh, the debt is $34 trillion. He points out, look, all of the assets that the federal government holds, including land, is like $200 trillion. And his point is, all we got to do is sell off some of those assets. Now, do we have the wherewithal to actually do that? Who knows? But
or open the Keystone Pipeline and start making anyway.
the horrors.
Anyway, so the law fell into disuse for a long time, but then it was revived in 33 AD when cases were brought against well-known individuals. So the court was overwhelmed with that, especially because it seems that pretty much every senator was in violation of this law. In other words, they were taking advantage of this law. Okay.
And all of a sudden, you saw a single unit body of senators go, oh crap,
Puckered.
puckered.
Their butts puckered.
The wind in that place all went.
So listen to this. Dude, this is so government. If we can't see what's happening, this is so government. So Tiberius, who was reigning over Rome when the crisis hit, gave a grace period. And guess what? Everybody rushed to buy land and creditors called in their loans. Boy.
Gold rush.
Gold rush. That's exactly right. This hit a bunch of people who were in debt, and it was the worst. It was worse because the Senate passed a resolution saying creditors had to invest 2/3 of their capital into Italian land, and debtors had to pay back that same amount to their creditors or to their loans that they had. So it was this. It really, what happens is in these kind of economies, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. We end up losing, but the rich get richer. So it's all the senators and stuff.
Yep.
You're seeing that kind of happen now, right?
And to your point, what they told the rich was, okay, now we're narrowing the focus of how you can make your money. So of course, what they do, okay, I'm going to make my money then. I've got to protect my wealth. So then they look at the guy who owes them money. You're like, you better pay me back now so I can go protect my wealth in this narrow strip of assets that the government has told me I'm supposed to pour my money into, right? So as soon as the government goes, no, you stay in here, it builds this competition between the rich and the poor.
That's exactly it. So Creditors required the entire loans, and debtors were obliged to pay the full amount. And if they couldn't, goodbye land, right? That's how this worked. They just ended up swallowing land like crazy because who could pay that back? Debtors tried to sell their lands, which flooded the markets and drove prices down. Sound familiar? Except in our case, interest rates were so low, prices could go up because of the demand. The problem is you sold your house. Now you're buying another house at a high rate and a high price. So it's so stupid because it in some sense, you're like, yes, I'm getting the value for my home. And then you're like, oh, crap, I got to put that. Now I'm paying 30% more on another house. It just.
You know what's interesting to that? I just thought about this. We've got a friend who they built their house. They were in it for, I don't know, maybe a year. And they sold it for probably 100% value, right? They pretty much doubled their money or something.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
And then they moved out of state to a place where the money was more, the values were lower. And it's that if you don't allow people to disperse widely, then you're corralling everybody because like you and me, yeah, cool, we could sell our house for, a 50, 60% profit.
Right.
But then we got to go buy a house that's 50% overvalued,
And it's bad. So they tried to sell their lands. Obviously, lands got swallowed up by loans and banks and obviously the Senate because they were all in cahoots with it. Senate tried to prop up land values, but this forced many to sell their properties. Creditors held on to their cash and waited for land prices to drop. Sound familiar, Warren Buffett? But to the bottom before buying up land, the shortage of credit drove up interest rates. So we're seeing now what's happening, though, the difference between them and now is the Federal Reserve is controlling the interest rates. They think what they're doing is smart, which the Federal Reserve, we all know, is no more federal than FedEx. Did you know that's the original name, Federal Express? So do you remember that in the 80s, the Federal Express? They're no more federal than the Federal Express. Nixon took us off the entirety of the gold standard, and it ruined our dollar. Now we're just printing, and we just believe $20 is $20. It's no longer $20. It's just what we believe now. That's why, going to the grocery store. Many of you know this. You can put 5 items in a bag. It's $100. You're like, what the flip? This was last year. It was only 60.
And I'm glad you brought that up because to go back to Kiyosaki's point about gold and silver, that's where the value of gold and silver is, right? So your gold, the value of it goes up with the dollars, right? So the more dollars are in supply, well, it just takes more dollars to buy your gold, right? So if your loaf of bread costs $5 and you have $5 value of gold, well, that value of gold, that measurement of gold, will also buy you when that bread is $200. Right? So the gold grows with the value. That's why gold is considered a really reliable
best
asset.
hedge. The best hedge.
It's a hedge against inflation because the value of it moves up directly with the inflation. Now,
it just sucks that fear's used to sell it in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Instead of recognizing its value. Now, what's the lesson in all of this, right? Let's go to the end here.
Yep.
If you're always keeping your eyes on markets and trends, we all kind of fall into this trap, right? Well, the Bible said that there'd be wars, rumors of wars, earthquakes, and all this other stuff. If we only focus on the signs, we miss the Lord of it. If we only focus on, oh, did you see that earthquake? We knew it was coming, but you were sitting there only worried about the earthquake and not worried about souls.
Right.
You weren't worried about how can I help my neighbor, right? So you're warning him about an economic collapse, or you're warning him about his soul before Jesus. I think that's the biggest problem we see with a lot of these fear-mongering tactics. Robert Kiyosaki and them, just shooting straight with you, they're worried about money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When I'm in God's economy, he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, not me. I don't do anything. Like, Lord, I'm ignorant to the financial side. Can anybody agree with me? I'm as ignorant as everybody else to the financial economic side of the nation, how economics works. I just want to go work, raise my family and kids, and and do well, and buy my wife a nice little necklace every now and then. That's my goal. Now, you're worth more than that, babe. What's that song? I had the best of intentions. What's his name? What's his name? He's got the long hair. Travis Tritt. I like that song. But even prophets that come out and say there's an economic collapse coming soon, they've been doing this forever. You know what I mean? And it's almost an easy prediction to make.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy.
Barely anybody remembers if you do and you're wrong, and everybody remembers if you did and you're right.
Right. And it's a lot to take in. And what it all boils down to is this: do other people have your emotions within their control? Dang. I just said this to a group of kids. Emotions are great companions, but terrible leaders. Terrible leaders. And are we making decisions based on emotions? Are you making investments based on emotions? Are you pulling out of markets based on emotions? If you're truly led of the Spirit, he will tell you what to do, and you know what to do with your money. You know how to, right? And he seems to prosper those that just allow him to move in it. You know what I mean? Do they have control over you using fear and expert talk in order to get you to do something? And dude, by their expert talk, are they controlling the economy? Like you said, one word from Warren Buffett, boom, tanks companies. So is it really expert talk, or is it just their influence that does these things?
And a perfect example, and anybody who's been around financial markets and gold and silver and all that knows kind of this story, but I think it was a couple of brothers who purposefully tanked the silver market. They took in they controlled the silver market. And you can get to that point where a voice or a person with enough wealth can actually control what a market does purely by their moves. Warren Buffett's one of those guys. Like, he's got enough to where he could tank something just by his opinion or his expert advice. And I've got lots of respect for the guy. I don't put scare quotes to say he's not an expert.
Dude, his business advice is insane. Like, so good.
And all we're saying is, and the reason I went through like these different red flag indicators is because for myself, when Kiyosaki said, oh, the repo market, it's completely volatile, it's about to collapse everything, I wanted to figure out, okay, what's he seeing? Why is he saying that? Now, somebody much smarter than me may come back and tell me, no, this is what he was seeing. This is why he's saying that. Cool. If you do, man, I receive it. But what I could find in my research was, I'm not seeing those red flags.
Right. But let's say you weren't right about what we just did today. Let's say there's an economic. Are you going to be ruled by fear then? So collapse coming. Am I going to be like paralyzed by fear? Because that's what fear does. It paralyzes you.
Mm-hmm.
You become irrational. You lash out. You become irritable, depressed. And none of that is in the fruit of the Spirit. None of what I listed is a fruit of the Spirit.
Right.
None of it. And so I almost feel like the gospel of self-preservation that has been preached for so long, that debt is being called in right now.
That's a good way to put it.
So it's not about self-preservation. The gospel, the true gospel, is giving your life away. He that loses his life for my sake shall find it. So it's like, you said it here. Could an economic collapse? Yes. We all know. If war pops, yes, it could totally happen.
Could you imagine the market tanks tomorrow?
Why do we do this? We're not predictors, dude. We're just seeing what we're seeing. But the whole idea is, I'm supposed to store up treasures in heaven, not on earth. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to be smart and be rich, and there's nothing wrong with those things. Shoot, I want money too, just like the next guy. But my investment right now is in the kingdom. Come any economy, come hell or high water, if we lose our donors tomorrow, I'm never called to stop preaching.
Right.
I got to figure out a way to go get it done.
Can we?
Yeah.
I want to talk about what you and I talked about on the phone yesterday. And somebody pointed this out to me. I thought this was great. And then we'll round it out. I know we're running long, but you guys are still here, so we love you.
Praise the Lord.
So
pass the anger.
Yeah, exactly. The parable of the talents. And I've thought about this one over and over for years. Master gives 10 to 1, 5 to 1, 1 to 1.
Yeah.
10 and 5 go out, they're using their talents, they're growing things. The one with the one talent goes and buries it. Master comes back, and the servant looks at the master and says, well, I knew you were a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, so I hid this. And the master goes, you knew I was a hard man, reaping where I didn't sow. Why didn't you at least put the talent in the bank where it could have grown interest? And you know what's interesting is the guy took the talent. He didn't just put it in his pocket. He didn't just put it in the wall. He buried it in a field as though he's misapplying the talent, like purposefully.
Yeah.
Like,
bro, he didn't give you a bushel of wheat. He gave you a coin. Why put it in the ground?
Thank you.
You know?
Thank you. Because
he thought by putting it into the ground, it's going to grow. or at
Right.
least maintain itself.
Right.
That's stupid.
And you've pointed out, which I think is great, is no, it actually loses value because the value of money over the long term goes down, right? So he puts it in the ground. He thinks, well, I'm just, it's being okay by it being there.
And that's actually correlated by what the master said after. You could have at least put it in the bank and gained interest, which
Right.
means it loses interest too.
Right. So that talent, that money, he could have at least gone out, bought some wheat, and planted the wheat in the field.
Gosh.
Then he would have grown a crop.
He totally would have, dude.
So he goes out of his way to take the talent, and instead of just, hey, I'll buy some wheat and put it, no, he takes the money and he hides it, somehow hoping that is going to further the kingdom. Which speaks of, and he speaks out of fear. I knew you were a hard man, reaping where you didn't sow. And what I find interesting is he uses language of growth, language of, no, you sow wheat and reap. And then he goes, I know you reap where you don't sow. And so basically I sowed the money into the ground. He misapplied it and he did nothing with it. So I want you to think about when you're going forward with the kingdom, when you're going forward with what God has given you, whether financially or with whatever, are you purposefully burying it in the ground or misapplying it? When if you would have just gone out with it and taken a chance, taken an opportunity, done something with it, God would grow it. God would multiply it. He'd grow it exponentially and then provide you even more responsibility when you got back.
Good word.
And I think about that in terms of money. It's like, boy, my money is sitting in a bank, losing value day after day. And what's it doing? Well, it's there in case but there are other ways for me to invest that money that I can still get value out of it when I need to. I can still buy stuff, but I can actually put it into something where it's growing, right?
Right. So you have a better shot at taking a risk at a business that is going to be successful than in a bank only getting 3%, 5%
Right.
return. Sometimes maybe 10 in an IRA,
right,
over time, right?
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah. And so really, it's like who has your future in his hands, and ultimately, like, we fight on earth to go do God's will, bring the kingdom of heaven on earth, right? But y'all, we know our time is short. We know that one day we could die, and really, did we do everything to glorify God or glorify fear? I think that's really the question. Did we glorify fear or glorify God? Did we promote people to more fear and told them to go buy products, or did we say, no, sell everything you have and give it to Jesus, right? Like, go purchase that field that has the pearl of great price. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying sell your fields to give to I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, spiritually, aren't we supposed to do that? Like, are we giving in more to fear? Oh my gosh, if the election goes one way or the other, our nation's gonna die. Well, it's like, I guess what? Nations come and nations go, and the word of the Lord still remains. Charles Spurgeon's quote always comes to me. He says, in the darkest of ages, Christ has had a church, and if darker times shall come, Christ will still have his church. It's like, I can't concern myself. Now, will it be crazy and hard, and my kids have to suffer? And yes, we're going to have to go through some things. But I also see, too, the goodness of God in it all. Like, maybe God is exposing things for us to see, not because we should have fear, but that we should do something about it. Maybe if we weren't so covetous as a nation, we wouldn't see economics as a sign of Christ's return or anything like that, but we would see the signs of heaven as Christ's return. Ooh. So, like, let's just take a moment, pray, say to yourself, Lord, am I really in your will here? Am I living out of fear?
Amen.
And if you guys are economists and you guys are like, you guys are stupid. Hey, we welcome that. We know we're stupid.
Please.
We're just saying yes to everything, right? We'll do whatever.
Come have a conversation and
yeah.
tell me what
Let's
you
do it.
see.
Matter of fact,
I would love to hear it.
We'd love to have you on the podcast, bro.
Yeah. Oh, we lost it. Hey,
the microphone went out.
is it there?
Hello?
There we go. That was weird.
So anyways, we love you. Go to theselfevidenttruth.com. Find out more information about what we're doing, why the heck we do it, and let us come to your town. Let's indoctrinate you with the truth.
And there it goes. All right. We love you guys. Yep. We hope you guys have a great day. We're going to figure out this microphone stuff. Anyways, go to theselfevidenttruth.com. Please, by all means, donate.
That's why. I was unplugged.
It was you.
It was I.
It's his fault.
It's his fault, not mine. I
It's
didn't
his
do
fault.
anything.
I didn't say it was your fault. I said pay
All right.
attention.
All right. Love you guys.
Family
We'll see you
drama
guys later.
live on